Thank you, Paul. So everyone, I'd like you to take a deep breath. And now imagine a mother who found out that her son was murdered in a high school party. And now imagine a retired couple whose entire financial savings was taken away from them by a dishonest financial advisor. And imagine a college student, a young girl, who was hit by a drunk driver and her face was totally disfigured. What do they all have in common? They were all able to forgive. They were able to forgive the unforgivable. Now, we've all had our share of hurts. For me, it was when I was a little girl and my parents got divorced. I felt hurt, I felt rejected and abandoned. And then years later, when I went through my own divorce, it triggered me right back to those same feelings of hurt and abandonment and rejection. My father and my husband were in the same boat. They were in that boat of, I don't trust men anymore. I heard about forgiveness, but I really didn't know what it was. I thought it was about letting somebody off the hook, or that I had to trust someone. Or worst of all, it was that I was like endorsing their bad behavior. But I had a lot to learn. Years later, when my ex-husband moved on with his life, I was still angry, and I built this big, giant fortress around my heart. The truth is, forgiveness has nothing to do with the person who hurt you or what they did to you. It is 100%, I learned, about me getting over my own hurt and my own shame, my own guilt. I needed to release this. And as long as I was a victim, what happened? I was literally powerless to release it. So what I had to learn was that forgiveness really, truly is a gift. It gives us the confidence that we need to know that we can be hurt, because we're all going to be hurt, right? We can be hurt, and we can bounce right back from it. And we need to do that. We need to practice bouncing back. Now I want to switch this around. I'm going to ask you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever hurt someone else? Right? Everyone has. Could you imagine if your entire life was defined by that one moment of you hurting someone else? How awful would that be? Worse yet, what if you had never forgiven yourself? I can tell you that I have spent way too much time in my life beating myself up. And guilt and shame are notorious friends. They literally become a habit, a lifetime habit. I don't recommend them. I'm going to tell you two true stories. The first one, well, let me just say this. Both of those stories that I want to tell you about are about people whose children have died as a result of something they did. The first was my father's best friend. When I was 8 years old, he also had an 8-year-old son. And one morning, he took his son fishing. He fell asleep at the wheel. The other is a woman named Brenda Slavey, who was actually noted as the most hated mother in America. She was married and had 2 children, and her husband had always taken the kids to daycare. Well, one morning he had a dentist appointment and he asked her to take the youngest one to daycare. And she said, fine. And she was doing her thing in the morning, rushing around like a crazy person, put the child in the car seat, and drove off and went to work. And 8 hours later, the police walked in and told her her 2-year-old child was dead. Sorry, I didn't expect that. So one of them, my father's friend, spent years of his life in a cycle, an endless cycle of self-blame, self-hatred, alcohol abuse, depression. But Brenda somehow had a good enough support system where she was able to forgive herself and do something really significant out of this. She goes around and she teaches women, mostly, about slowing down in their lives, taking the time that they need, so that this never happens to them. So if not wanting to be a victim for the rest of your life is not impetus enough to forgive, how about your health? When we're stressed out because we haven't forgiven, our adrenals act up. And when our adrenals act up, our cortisol levels rise. And when your cortisol levels rise, your immune system shuts down. And that's because you're in fight or flight mode. You cannot be healthy and heal and be in fight and flight mode at the same time. Well, imagine years and years and years of this, you become sick, right? Well, the Forgiveness Project, in cooperation with the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, has stated that cancer and other life-altering diseases can all benefit from forgiveness. When patients release hate and resentment, they found that immune systems are enhanced tremendously. Thus, recovery is possible. And there are tons of other studies that concur with this, including from Stanford, Commonwealth of Virginia, and University of Maryland. Another reason to forgive, of course, is spiritual forgiveness, right? We've all had those dark night of the soul kind of moments where we're angry and we don't know what to do. Sometimes we ask God for help. Sometimes we ask for a miracle. And I absolutely love miracles. As a divorce attorney, I used to teach these transcending divorce classes. And in those classes, I learned that when my clients got to the point of forgiveness, miracles happened and lawsuits were settled. So years after my divorce, when my ex-husband decided that he didn't have to pay me child support anymore, we ended up having 2 lawsuits at once. So I decided that, that forgiveness process, that worked for my client. Well, maybe it'll work for me too. And within 2 weeks of doing that process myself, I had both lawsuits were settled and an email from him saying, I think I'm too old to spiritually do this anymore. Let's be over. Let's have this done. So this is where forgiveness takes you. Think about how much time you've wasted being hurt, angry, or bitter. This is a picture of me with my son at graduation and both my ex-husbands and my new husband. And of course, me and my dad. Woe is right. So how do you tap into this thing we call forgiveness? First, you make the choice, the intellectual choice to actually forgive. Then you need to take personal responsibility for your piece in the situation, which I know is hard when you are a kid to do that. Next, you need to find the gift. Every single situation has a gift. And I'm going to give you an example. If you were raised in an alcoholic, abusive family, you might be extremely self-reliant or a really great mediator. That's the gift. There's always a gift. Next, you need to learn to love yourself. This was my gift. This was my difficult gift. If you don't like what you are or who you are, you got to change. Then you start building your forgiveness muscle. And you do this by every single day doing something where you forgive. So that person who cuts you off in traffic, forgive. That boss who yells at you, forgive. That teenager who walks into the house and calls you an idiot, forgive. And finally, if you can't do it yourself, pray. Just ask for a miracle. The title of this program, Forgiving the Unforgivable, is a misnomer because, in fact, everything is forgivable. Life is about growth, and you cannot move forward when you are still hoping that something in your past is going to change. You cannot find health and peace in anger and bitterness. It just isn't going to work. So forgiveness is a choice. It's your choice. What will you choose?